Well, it looks like we are just having some fun tonight. Welcome to The Real Deals, folks. We're going to try this intro again right now. Welcome. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about some little known information on what? Low-level spiritual oppression. So hold on to your hats, kiddies. It's going to be bumpy tonight. Right? Yeah.
The Real Deals are on the air now. And now, live from the Swords of St. Michael Studios, it's The Real Deal, Pharaoh's Deal.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And I'd like to invite all of you, whether you're new or whether you've been with us a while, please give this video a like, thumbs up, please. And up above, if you can, hit the subscribe and share the video. Welcome, everyone, tonight. Tonight's show is going to cover a very interesting topic that is very near and dear to me and a lot of the people I speak to on a regular basis. And so before we get into it, before we get into the prayers, I just want to remind you, as a lay ministry, we totally need your support because, you know, we help people all over. So if there's any way at all you can, there's a few ways that you too can support Swords of St. Michael and The Real Deals ministry here. So in our spiritual kickback, spiritual warfare plan, we help everybody despite no matter what, who, where, when, how they call, we help, you know, we're there. So this is how you can help. Click on the PayPal link here in the descriptions and make a donation of any size. It can be $1, okay? It's stamps. They all go. Hello again, Tony C. Yes, this is going to be good tonight. Also, number 2, you can become a Patreon sponsor. How do you do that? You log into Patreon, and once a month you go, okay, I want to send The Real Deals, or I want to send Swords of St. Michael $5, something like that. And it's really cool because it means that, you know, it's just a few dollars regularly. Or, hey, if you want to be a $100 sponsor, that's okay too. I'm totally cool with that. Number 3. This is really near and dear to my heart because, you know, a lot of people, thank you, Ash, thank you, gobs of prayers and loves, we need them. And that is like my number one thing is, you know, too many people, we're like, oh, you know, somebody's dying, somebody's in the hospital. Yeah, these people need our prayers. But you know what? It's little people, too, that are doing their best to try and get the truth out, like Sensus Fidelium, like Virgo Potens, like Dr. Taylor Marshall, like myself, little people. Well, Taylor Marshall's not little anymore. But there's so many people that need your prayers. So if you can, offer a mass or offer an hour of adoration, or even possibly do a decade of rosary. Woohoo! Busting down those strongholds, people. So tonight's episode, we're talking about how to keep you out of the devil's playground. How do we go about doing that? Stay tuned, kiddies. It's time for our St. Michael prayer.
The Real Deals are on the air now.
I think y'all know that. In nomine Patri et Filii et Spiritus Sanctus, sic erat et principio et nunc et semper et saecula saeculorum. Sanctum Michael Arcangele, defende nos in prelio, contra nequitiam et insidiis diaboli est oppressidium. Imperere Deo, supplices de peccamur tuque, princeps milece celestis satana maliosque spiritus malignos, qui ad perditionem animarum pervegantur in mundo divina virtute, in infernum detrude. Amen. Kick it back, St. Michael. Hear that? Let's have a snack attack. All right, kiddies, get your popcorn. Woo, we got some stuff to talk about tonight. Now, the whole inspiration for the show is, as people may or may not know, November is the month of the Holy Souls, where in the faith and the tradition, we remember those souls that have passed before us. We remember all the relatives, all of the people that we've loved, that we believe are either in heaven or on the edges of heaven, about to get in there. We pray for the lost, the forgotten. And I think that's the most important, is that a lot of people don't realize how important it is You know, you may brush up against somebody. You may pull up your car to a curb or a corner and see somebody that you think is undesirable or disgusting, or they're nasty, or, you know, they're shooting up. Those people are the forgotten, and they need our prayers. So November is a special time where each one of us can offer some form of mortification, some form of maybe a meal, or maybe not drink a latte, some form of small mortification that we can offer up for these forgotten souls, for these lost souls, for those souls, you know, in the graveyard, and that sort of thing. So keep that in mind for the month of November. Now, tonight's show, you guys, I want to keep you guys out of the devil's playground here. This is an inspiration by St. John of the Cross, one of my favorites, who has a wonderful book of poems, poetry, The Dark Night of the Soul. Very intense reading, very, very difficult if you are not ready for it. It's like almost any other really good, heavy work. If you're not ready for it, it's a lot. Now, the inspiration came from the spiritual warfare idea and concept that is not being preached. It is not being talked about, and it's hardly even suggested in the world we live in today. St. John of the Cross was known to say this: when you step out of authority, you step onto the devil's playground. What does that mean? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. So as I go through this, if you have any questions, Deb's not in there tonight, but I see Tony C is. Hello, Don. I see you made it. Welcome, welcome. And as I said, if you're new to the channel, please give us a like up. You know, thumbs up, give us a subscribe, that cute little bell notification, subscribe so you get notifications. If you can, any way, shape, or form possible, you know, give us a little support here and there. PayPal's there, Patreon, and I'll have the links in the description. All right, so as we go through this, we are going to talk about what is authority? What is right ordered authority? Plus, I've got this week's question. You don't want to miss that one because it's all about provocation. It's going to be at the end. And if you have to leave, okay, come back. You don't want to miss this question. It's hot. It's hot, hot, hot. It's so hot. Okay, so John of the Cross. What was he talking about when he was talking about authority, when we step out of authority? Let's talk about what is authority. Most people, I'm my own boss. I'm my own person. I don't have to answer to anyone. What a lovely world we live in. You don't have to answer to anyone. You don't have to say anything to anyone at any time. Lucky you. Boy, are you in for a shock. Now, sadly, most of our world believes this. If you are under any sort of, you had a mother and father, okay? But you don't have to listen to them. Your mom and dad, they lived in a state, whether it's Canada, whether it's France, they lived somewhere. And what authority were they under? The government. But you don't have to listen to them either. You can break the laws, you can break your rules, you can do whatever you want, right? So they lived under a government, and that government was answerable to who? Depending on if it was a communist country or depending on if it was supposedly a democratic country, everybody is answerable to anybody. So whether that superior was someone that they could identify or not, they were still under the authority. So whoever you are, wherever you are listening to this, you gotta pay taxes. You gotta pay your bills. That's authority. That's authority. And does that mean that that is a superior authority that you have to obey, that you have to listen to? If you choose to live in a society that pays its bills, that honors its debts, that will enable you to live as part of a civilized area, you're going to be under authority. Let's say you live in the woods with the bears and the lions and the bees. Who's your authority? The strongest, most powerful creature. You will definitely come under authority if they attack you. And you will definitely respect that authority. Well, guess what, kids? The same is true in human land. That's what we're talking tonight. Okay? So, just off the bat, right there, when we look at you look at the levels of superior and authority that each and every one of us comes under every day, whether we have a faith, whether we are Catholic or Baptist, or whether we choose to attend a church or not, we still have a level of authority. Now, this level of authority affects us in a way that most people cannot see, cannot touch, cannot taste. Why? When we are paying our taxes, we are following authority, a legal authority. When we go to church, we are following the authority to participate in a level of thanksgiving. We are in an offering. Each level of authority grants us certain graces. Now, what do I mean by graces? All right, if you are in the medieval hierarchy of a serf, all right, if you do your work, you're going to get a piece of bread, you're going to get a roof over your head. That's the grace that is granted you from following that level of authority. In today's world, what do? Let's see, we pay our car insurance, we pay our taxes on our property, we pay our bills on time. That grants us the grace of living in harmony with one another. At any level of authority, at any time that you stop listening to that authority, stop following that authority, you open a spiritual door to demonic oppression that you don't even realize. Now, if this spiritual door looked ugly, let's say you're taking home pens from work, or let's say you're not paying all your taxes because to evade is legal, but, to not pay them is illegal, something like that. Or let's say, you're just fudging a little bit to your boss who asked you, where you were yesterday when you said you were sick and they couldn't reach you. These are levels of authority that we don't think about as potential doorways. These are tiny little cracks that are what? They're attractive. Why? Because instead of us being honest and saying, I really have to have a day off, and, basically saying, I realize you're my boss, I realize you're my authority, I have to have this time. And if not, get another job. Or face the music and discuss this until your authority, your authority of your boss understands that this is important for you. So stepping out of that authority is a crack. Okay, what kind of crack is this? This is an attractive crack because people think all the time, well, it's just a little white lie. It's not worth worrying about, right? It's not that important. It's not as horrendous as something that is so in your face that it's obviously something that's going to attract the demonic. Now, I have to tell you that in St. John of the Cross's writing, disobedience to right-ordered authority is one of the biggest open invitations to a mortal sin. Why? Why does he say this? Why does he say this? Now, everybody's thinking, well, this is just really nothing. And how do we know what that authority is? So I'm going to go into that in detail with you. Because a lot of us, we have a very easy time of blowing things off, of putting things off, of telling people, well, we gloss over things. Especially to those that we shouldn't. And who am I saying those that we shouldn't? How about our parents? How about our spouses? How about somebody that is due the right order of respect that we ought to give them? That's when we look at levels of authority where we ought to be giving respect and we're not. This is one of those, they call them slippery slopes. But according to John of the Cross, this is not good. This is very dangerous, kids. And so as he describes, how do we recognize right-ordered authority? How do we get it through our head This is an obstacle placed in our path by the demonic to disobey the right ordered authority. All right? So, according to Blessed Lucas, who John of the Cross admired greatly, any legitimate command of a legitimate superior and the order is just, we need to follow. So whether it's a police officer telling you, hey, get out of there now, whether it is your boss that has a superior ability to tell you what to do, he may be your superior but may not be spiritual superior. Do you understand the difference? On the job, your boss is your superior to the extent that you are contractually bound to him. However, your boss cannot tell you how to worship. Your boss cannot tell you who to marry. Do you understand? So in this sense, you've got to obey him according to your job. When you choose to disobey him, that's when we get into problems on the job. So let's go into some more. A person that we need to obey has to have a level of power and superiority over us that we are ordered to obey in a way that what? That honors God, that honors, right order and right nature. Where are the instances that we don't have to? That we're just saying, okay, my parent told me this, or let's say my pastor said this, or my boss said this. How do you determine who are you not supposed to listen to? How are you supposed to know when you're supposed to go, no, there is no way. I'm not going to do this. So there's really, really, really specific things that we have to look for when we think, maybe I don't have to listen to this. So you want to be very, very careful. We know that we can say no to a police officer, a governor, someone that has a level of power and authority over us, somebody that we are due justice to if the order that we're listening to is not just, such as, let's just give an example. Yes, let's say your landlord that, you owe a certain level of rent to, they are ordered the justice of being paid. Well, let's say your landlord is involved in some sort of maybe a pyramid scheme or something, but you don't know what they're involved in. But they tell you, instead of giving you the $1,000 check, or instead of giving them the $1,000 check, they want you to make 2 checks made blank, leave it blank, and then they want you to meet some guy on the corner and give it to him, and the other check they want you to give to the neighbor. And no, you don't get a receipt, but don't worry, your rent's covered. In this instance, it's really blatant that there's something strange going on. It's hard to give you all the parameters of strange things that people will ask other people to do. Something like that it's that blatant is going to be really obvious. That's why I was saying earlier that the devil's not going to give you anything that's unattractive like that. He's going to make it look really good. He's going to make it look so tempting that you're going to want to try it. So it may be something like the landlord says, hey, let's go gambling with the rent. And, if you don't make it, I'll cover your rent. But if you do, I want to take, a certain percentage of your proceeds. And then he takes you to a house of cards where he knows the bookies and he knows the tables are basically wired for magnetics. These are instances that if he knows you have a gambling problem and he knows you really, really enjoy cards, this is going to be very tempting for you. And this is what I'm trying to get to, is instances that there will be times that we are going to be tempted away from following that authority by things that we think are fun, or things that we think, well, that can't be so bad. And really, it really, really is. So in this instance, if your landlord says, I want you have to do this. No, you don't have to do that. We have to understand. There are times to say no. Lots of them. So that's one. Also, another thing is, let's just say This is a really good one, because this goes back to, I'm sure everybody remembers the floods of the lower part of the United States of America. We had that bad hurricane that flooded everything. In this instance that I'm going to discuss, we're talking about right ordered authority that is not superior to you, that you can say no to. There will be instances and times where you may come into a situation where there is a legal or political authority over you, where you have every reason to believe that the person that you're encountering, whether it is a person that, let's just say, they are not who they say they are. They're pretending to be a security guard. They're pretending to be a police officer, and you don't know for sure, but you do know something about badge numbers. You do know something. If the person has no power to command you, or in other words, if you know for a fact that they do not hold the level of power they claim to, you have every right to say no. You have actually a spiritual obligation to expose that person and warn other people about them if they have no power to order others around. That's a really hard one. But there are instances, very, very good instances, you got to be careful of. Also, something that is, a lot of people, since most of us are not, we're not totally up on natural law, we're not totally aware of church law. When somebody tells us to do something that goes against natural law, natural law, as in, think of nature, think of animal husbandry. You work for a scientific organization, and your boss wants you to begin a new experimentation process involving, they're going to take chicken embryos and they're going to mix them with primate embryos and implant them in a bovine uterus. That is against natural law. Very against natural law. You have every right to say, no, I'm not doing that. I am not going to do that. So that's an instance of natural law where you say, So, church law. Anything that goes contrary to the law of the church. What is the church? Christ instituted the church. Everybody knows our 10 commandments, don't we? You know, thou shalt not have any other gods before me. I just made a post today, you guys. I copied a post from, I can't say his name, but it's RM. How's that? That basically pointed out, we live in a society today where we don't see all the little subtle invitations to do what? To make something else first instead of God. And one of the easiest ones is our cell phones. One of the first things most of us do, we got rid of our alarm clocks, we got rid of our, and how does this deal with spiritual warfare? We're putting something before God first. That's what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the invitation to low-level demonic oppression starts with not following right-ordered authority. And you can't get any more right-ordered authority than church law. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. And what do? First thing we do out of bed, who's on? What are they doing? What are they doing? We're flipping through our phones. Guilty. We need to say a little prayer. Okay, God, where does my gratitude belong? Before we even touch that. The point I was making about church law here is that we know thou shalt not murder. But most people think that that's, let's just take an axe and chop off his head. How about you murdered somebody with your words? How about you said somebody was stupid, they were fat, they were mentally ill, and they were a miscreant? That's not murdering much, is it? And what did you just do? You may have been upset. They may have hurt you. You might be saying, I can't believe my husband. My husband doesn't do this. My husband doesn't do that. In public, in a public forum. What did you just do? You just opened the door. Because the justice that was due to your husband, the justice that was due to that person that may not be a miscreant, you just stole it away from them and you murdered their character. And what did you invite in? You invited in the low-level demonics to start pestering you. Why? Because you stepped out of right-ordered authority. That most people don't even think of. We drive down the road half the time screaming and yelling, oh, you idiot! I can't believe you did that. Guilty. I gotta stop that. We don't even know the people. All we see is their jerky reactions, so we react to them. This is the low-level invitation. Why do we do this? Well, because it's fun to scream at people. It's fun to think that we're so much better than them kids, but we're not. We're so not. So, when I'm talking about following church authority, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the most basic tenets of your faith. The 10 Commandments. All right? So I think we can all agree that those are pretty powerful, right? Yeah. So, we had anything contrary to natural law, anything contrary to church law. You can say, no, I'm not doing that. Okay? Just no way. Now, other ways that we can get ourselves in big, big trouble is a lot of people don't realize this because we see it all the time and it's very accepted in our culture. And the reason I really feel strongly about this is because occasionally I have to say that I'm really, really tempted to slam the low level of idiocy that presents itself as a walking, talking human bobblehead. And I say bobblehead because you look for people to show signs of intelligence and they're not. So what do? We call them names. What do? We post memes. We do. I'm guilty. And what is that doing? What is it doing? When we're inviting other people to partake in an attack on a public person that holds a position of authority. If they legitimately have that authority, whether it is Bill Clinton, whether it was Mr. Obama, whether it is Mr. Donald Trump, if they legitimately hold a position of power and you choose to slander them publicly, if you choose to talk about their sexual proclivities, if you choose to publicly excoriate their character, you're inviting low-level demonic oppression. Does this mean you're going to be possessed? No. Does this mean you're going to have some attitude at home? Yes. Is this going to invite in moodiness, crankiness, headaches, loss of keys, low-level cockroaches? Take me seriously. Hear me now. This is just the beginning. And we don't think of this stuff. The negativity that's invited is a ripple. The negativity that we invite upon ourselves, it ripples into more, and we don't even realize it. So if we have a leader we don't like, and basically we're entitled not to like them. We don't have to like them. If they hold legitimate power, legitimate authority, whether they are destroying our country, whether they are destroying our nation, whether they are destroying the United Nations, whether they are destroying our church, if they hold that right-ordered power, as long as they don't go against nature and they don't go against church law, we follow in obedience and pray for them. Yes, we all have our opinions. Yes, we can all talk to our spouses, our best friends, and saying, oh, I can't believe that. Oy vey, can you believe that? That was the stupidest thing I ever saw in my life. Yes. Can we take that publicly? No, we can't. It is bad enough that we complain to somebody that we care about and somebody that understands where we're at. That is bad enough, and that is invitational enough, because every negative thing that comes out of your mouth, there's at least 10 demonics listening to going, hey, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Come on, let's go get some more. And they're right in your ear, egging you on to say nastier and uglier and horrible things, including cussing, and just it's gonna snowball. All right, it's gonna snowball, and this is how sin blinds us. Because once you say so-and-so stupid, then you call them another name and another name and another name. I don't care if you agree with me. This is spiritual warfare. This is where it starts. This is where it starts. St. John of the Cross isn't off. So, we're not allowed to tear apart the character. And I saw a really good example of this in a Sensus Fidelium video. So say the president of the world decides, this is what we're going to do for our country. Every single person is not going to water their grass on Monday. And you're like, this is my grass. This is my house. Nobody tells me when I can water my... No, you can't do that. Well, that person is watering their grass on Monday. You can't do that. You are not allowed to criticize. You are not allowed to look at them and say, well, they're doing something different. I want to do what I want. And this is the example that was given. When a mailman knocks on your door and gives you an envelope, do you look at the mailman and think, I don't like the clothes he's wearing. I don't like the cologne. He stinks. Oh my gosh, who would wear that disgusting cologne? You can smell it 20 miles away. Where'd he get it at? Do you look at him and say, he's not that attractive. I wouldn't caught dead talking to him in public. He's just ugly. Are you allowed to look at the messenger? No. You grab your envelope and you say, oh, okay, cool, thanks. Same goes for right order authority. You don't look at it. You don't criticize it. You just accept it. It is what it is. And it's the number one way to stay away from minor, low-level oppressions in the ear. Hey, Denise, no problem. Good to see you. We're talking about low-level invitations on the devil's playground. So what a lot of people are not understanding when, we're talking about right order authority and how people can be used. People can be used to dissuade, persuade. I mean, you see a lot of people in the entertainment fields. You see a lot of people as politicians. You see a lot of people that have been given a certain amount of authority and power, and you wonder, how did they get there? How could they possibly be doing what they're doing? And a lot of times it is hard to understand. It's very, very hard to understand. As I was saying earlier, we must follow the legitimate order. If it goes against nature, if it goes against the church, we don't have to follow it. Now, St. John of the Cross also spoke about a condition that he called the legitimate spirit. And what he was talking about is that not every spirit behind a principality or a seat of power, we could talk about a government, we could talk about a presidency, not every spirit is a right-ordered spirit. This is where faith comes in. This is, No, differences of opinions are perfectly okay, and difference of opinions is perfectly acceptable because we're supposed to have difference of opinion. Differences of opinion are healthy because they cause us to ask questions. They cause us to look deeper. Differences of opinions, it helps us like ping pong balls. Where do we go? Where do we pray? How do we do this? We have to have difference of opinions. I mean, that's very important. However, differences of opinions mean nothing when it comes to following the right ordered authority. That's all there is to that. So, we are not to question. End of story, right ordered authority. We don't pick apart their character, and we don't judge the messenger. Our job in order to stay off the devil's playground here, kids, we have to use the divine deposit of faith within ourselves. We have to see this from faith. We have to recognize the right ordered authority. We have to recognize the level of power that they carry. And the importance of following that, we have to obey the commands of that right ordered authority, irregardless of how we feel. Yeah, Tony, I think I agree. She means disrespect against the other. And a level of disrespect, no matter how it is delivered, is still disrespect. And I think that when you look at, does that person deserve respect? Well, no, they don't. Who are you to decide if they deserve respect or not? Because each and every human being has been created in the image of God. That's enough. I don't care if the person is the worst murderer on the face of the earth. They still deserve a level of dignity. That doesn't mean that I'm going to respect the power or anything that they hold. But the dignity and respect due to a human being is rendered exactly. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and render unto God what is God's. And God's justice is due to him through the homeless person, through the politician, through every single person you encounter. So I'm going to move on so I can get to the question. So basically, we judge people by the light of faith to recognize true superiority and true authority. That is the bottom line. That's what's so important. So we obey the commands. The greatest act of, shall we say, confusing the demons and getting them off of us and getting their light and their focus off of us, the greatest way you can do that, get this, a sincere act of humility, an act of charity. What is that? When you are in the throes of being tempted to judge, to criticize, to sit in the seat of judgment of somebody else's soul. I'm not talking about actions. We can judge actions as just or unjust. But to look at somebody's actions, like, I could talk about anything from history, such as, Genghis Khan, Marcus Aurelius, Pontius Pilate, Nelson Mandela and his Rings of Fire, the Clintons with their Haiti escapades. I could look at anybody from history and say, those are some really awful people. Those are some really awful things. Whether I'm calling them awful people or I'm publicly saying those are awful things, I'm still opening them up to public criticism. Now, if I was talking to my best friend, if I was talking to my pastor, if I was discussing this in a one-on-one situation, it's still going to draw negative demonics, okay, people? You can argue with me 6 ways to Sunday. When we speak negativity, we draw negativity. That's all there is to it. That's why we're supposed to pray in all things. God didn't want us harassed by these things that are here. He wants us living a peaceful life. And we can't do that unless we mind our own bloody business. There's so many saints that extolled this one virtue, that if we could keep our own nose out of other people's beeswax, we'd have some serious, serious peace. It is. Now, there are instances, such as, what people are talking about in chat, where you have an instance where you are witness to something that goes against justice in all forms, where something must be done. Whereas if you have a place of worship and an idol is brought in, and the pastor asks everybody to bow down and honor this as part of the church service, yes, you are bound to get up and go grab the idol and throw it in the fire. Got that? You are bound to the justice of God. Easy, cheesy, peasy. But how many of us are going to do that? How many of us are going to brave the derision, the criticism? How many of us are going to step out of our comfort zones and say, you know what? I don't want to hear you talk about the Clintons like that anymore. I don't want to hear you talk about that. Yeah, I don't like them. I don't like this and that they did. But I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to focus on other people's deeds anymore. And it's hard because we live in community. We live in a culture that it's what we talk about. It's what we talk about. How is that serving God? How is that glorifying God? See, there's only two things you glorify here, kids. You either glorify heaven or you glorify hell. Period. Period. Hey. Sorry, but you know what? St. John had me on a tear. St. John of the Cross had me on a bloody tear. So, like I was saying, his exhortation to us, you guys, you know what? Greatest kickback, be humble. All right? I said something really horrible today, and I was in a really foul mood. And what did I do? I went and I looked for an opportunity to serve somebody else, do something nice, say, I love you. Boom. Mood went, stuff went. I was not very nasty. But doesn't always work. So how can each of us, get out of a bad attitude? How can each of us identify the fact that we're tempted to gossip, we're tempted to step out of right ordered authority? How can each of us deal with this? Because I think this is pretty important, and we don't always look at it. Not a lot of us are ready to go, oh yeah, let's look for the first opportunity to just jump out of that and go do something humble and look to do an act of charity. It's really hard. Sometimes we have to start off with some of the smallest things, like maybe a little binding prayer. And I think I put this binding prayer up a number of times. We have crosses in our homes. We look to the crucifix, and we basically take whatever spirit it is, the spirit of hatred, the negativity, the spirit of gossip, calumny. You take that spirit, you bind it to the foot of the cross for Christ's disposal. And then you pray that the most Holy Ghost come and fill any holes left due to the binding. You bind it by the blood of Christ, and you ask it in Jesus' name. And you pray it over and over and over again until the ugly stuff goes away. There's excellent binding prayers. If you need some prayers, go to www.swordsofstmichael.org. There's also some really great prayers. If you guys want some fun Latin prayers, go to Virgo Potens. Tony's got some great ones too. Sensus Fidelium. I do those prayers in Latin. The Auxilium Christianorum, but I wouldn't do them, kids, if you're not in spiritual warfare. Those are some pretty wild prayers. So your binding prayers. Another thing that you can do too, if you're just beginning to battle lower level negativity, ugliness, and invitation to this stuff, The litany of humility is absolutely beautiful. Another thing you can do is plead the blood of Christ. This is one of the easiest, simplest things you can do, is you can join the two Marys at the foot of the cross, and you can ask for the blood of Christ to cover you. One of my favorites, all-time favorites, you guys, when we're tempted to just do the littlest ittiest bittiest little types of sins that you can even think of, that you don't even realize are invitational. One of the best prayers that you can do for instant humility, it's called the Jesus prayer. And you can do this, anything, you can do it on your fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We all got 10 fingers. Is just in your head or out loud, Jesus, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And you do it until the temptation goes away. Whether the temptation is to lie to your boss, to lie to your spouse, whatever the temptation is, give it a second thought and do your best to pray it away. Low-level oppression, don't ignore it, because it'll grow and grow and grow. So I think I covered that pretty well with St. John of the Cross, and I want to thank you all for coming. Please give this video a like, thumbs up, subscribe if you can. I'm going to do a finish with this fabulous question I got. Excuse me. And this question actually came from the video. So I'd like it, if you're new to the channel, if you're just seeing this tonight, to please leave some questions, leave some comments, because I'm always looking for new topics to expand upon. I'm looking for new subjects to cover. I'm also looking, as most things in life, there's many facets. And in spiritual warfare, especially with our culture being so varied and so, shall we say, expansive, I'm always coming up with new ideas and new ways to attack some of the most common things that we're all struggling with. So, the last and final question of the week, my folks. Now, this comes from Michael. And God bless you. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. When discussing demonic possession, all right, now, when you walk, if you are an investigator, if you're part of a church team, the question here is, when you are discerning a demon possession on a person, is it a valid process of placing a crucifix behind a suspected demon-possessed person without them knowing, to see if it will provoke the demon? Thank you for your question, Michael. Discerning. As we know, the word discern means to sift, okay? So if you're trying to discern a demon, thank you, Esquiva. I so appreciate it. That's so sweet of you. You do so much work yourself. Thank you for what you do with your clients and your patients. You're so wonderful. People don't even know all the stuff that you got to deal with. This question, though, really hits close to home, because a lot of people think that discernment and sifting through this can be easily done by something as simple as placing a crucifix behind somebody's head. Will that provoke the demon? I'd like to give you a percentage. The percentage would be low, because depending on the level of oppression, demons don't want to be found. They don't want you to know that they're there. So, number one, in a lesser demonic, a crucifix that is properly blessed in the old rite with an exorcism on it may provoke a response. Simple as that. A crucifix or a cross placed on the neck that is not blessed, but that is carried in faith with a person that has a level of holiness and relationship to Christ, that could provoke a demon. Chances are it's not. Why? Because as we know with possession is never 100% of the time. Demons are not allowed to enter our bodies 100% of, even with perfect possession. The devil will never own your soul 100%, people. So, will something as simple provoke a demon? Probably not. Because if it is a genuine possession, if the person has even an invitational possession or a causal possession that happened as a result of being close to something, the demon's not even there. You know, all his buddies are like, hey, they're coming to try and kick you out. You better head out. They're gone, you know. Demons don't leave unless they get a good beating and they've got a good holy priest that's going to make them hurt till they leave. Or the person choose to enter into a confessional, expose every sin of justice stolen to God. Boom. You'll see some demons running out of there. But as far as simple cross or crucifix, that alone is not enough to prove that there's any kind of demon. There have been times that I have been with Ken or I have been with other people and we have had exorcised items. To have that item come within 5 feet of somebody causes foam, causes eye rolling, causes people to leave the room. So if these demons are sensitive that have been provoking and oppressing and obsessing someone, they're going to either leave or they're going to cause the person to leave because it's making them uncomfortable. This is not a level of discernment or any kind of recommendation. I don't recommend anybody try this because this is not a wise thing to do. This is not a wise thing to do unless you are under spiritual direction, unless you are under the direct, shall we say, authority, right order of authority of your pastor. And they have said, yes, you may take this holy object with you in the investigation process. This is not wise. I don't recommend it. And this can be invitational if you're not aware of the spiritual doors you could be challenging. So on that note, kids, I want to say, everybody, thank you for the donations. Thank you for the support of the show. Yes, how about some more likes, okay? Because we want people to know they're not in the dark by themselves. They're not lost and alone. We're right there with you, and we're ready to help. And thank you so much, Tony C. I really appreciate all the work you do to help me with questions or anything. I hope I didn't miss any questions. I want to thank you all for joining us. And if you're new, please leave us a little comment. We want some more great shows, don't we, kids? So, don't forget, the battle's already been won, and we're here to help you win the fight and win it right. Hey, hey, hey. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. God bless. Thank you all.
The Real Deal TV show, copyright 2018. A Swords of St. Michael production. Any unauthorized duplication or rebroadcast or retransmission of this broadcast without the express written permission of the Swords of the Saint Network or that of Pharaoh's Deal is strictly prohibited.